Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk some One Piece chapter 898. Last week I didn't do the One Piece chapter impressions because, well, I didn't have that many impressions. It was a pretty simple chapter. It was covered very quickly. It also was one of those chapters that just tells us the situation of the battlefield, and then had just a lot of page spreads or double page spreads. It just overall made for a 4-minute video, and at that point I didn't feel like it was worth it to upload it. I didn't have that much fun with the last week's chapter. This week's chapter, though, it's a bit more interesting because there's a bit more going into it. Specifically, there's some questions we can ask, and there's also some fan speculation going on the side. So, you know, this week's chapter, it still kind of flows the same way that last week's chapter did, although this time around it's... Well, actually, when you look at the chapter, it's still a lot of action pieces. The action pieces coming from the Germa 6-6. So... you know, you can take what you can get. It's just chaos right now, with just a lot of really cool things happening with just the visual spectacle of it. Anyway, another funny story is that I recorded this before. This is the second time I'm recording this video. The first time I didn't save the audio file, so I'm just going to try and remember everything I said for that first one and just talk about it here. So we all read the chapter. What I want to specifically touch on were the points... Well, let me think. I wanted to touch on the origin of the powers for the Vinsmoke family. Just the funniness of how powerful the the 4 Vinsmoke siblings are, and I think just after that, just touching on the general fan reaction or like the fan speculation that's going on right now. So, beginning with the Vinsmoke. So I found it really funny. Oh wait, no, I'll leave that part for the end. In this chapter, it's pretty much the exhibition of the Vinsmoke powers, the full exhibition, because if you think about it, this is the first time we've actually seen what they can do. We know that the Vinsmokes have their thing, we know that they have their names, we know that they have their little powers because we've seen them in the anime opening, we know what kind of elements they're working on, but in this one we get to see full throttle what it is. Like, we get to see the Valkyrie thingamajig that Ichiji uses. We get to see the Henry, oh man, I'm forgetting all the names. I know it was Tachyon sword, then we see the winch and all that from Yonji. Anyway, we get to see a lot of their gadgets, and we also get to see Reiju doing her poison thing, and it gets to the point where I'm wondering, is Reiju's power really a devil fruit? Right? Because, like, we look at what's going on with the other 3 boys, right? We see the Valkyrie thing from Ichiji. We see how he lights up, how his eyes are most likely, like, lighting up in the same way that Frankie's nipples light up. And when we look at his Valkyrie thing, we see that it looks like laser technology. And when you consider that the Vinsmoke, or when you consider Judge, and you consider his history with a certain person in the world government, it makes you wonder, or it at least tells you that it's not that impossible for Judge to have his hands on laser technology. Now, one thing that I'm looking at this, and one thing that I'm thinking is just when you see what Ichiji is doing, when you see what Yonji is doing, and Yonji's is also very interesting. For instance, he's launching his hand out to grab something, and then you see that his glove is forming back into, well, from rope back into fingers. You know, it's kind of weird to think about what's actually going on there. Like, we know that Yonji has flesh and blood hands, but you see the dynamic, like what's going on in this scene, how he has that rope extending from his arm, and what's going on is what I start wondering. How is this technology, or is this like cybernetic implants? And, like, you know, to be conservative, because we've seen his flesh and blood arms in the anime before, looking at this, you know, I would think that his actual arm is still inside the glove, and he's just able to control it somehow, in the same way that Frankie's mini arm is able to work and still be controlled by Frankie somehow. You know, it's just, when you look at the technology with the Vinsmoke, it really reminds you of that saying that that science can get to a point where it looks like magic to the untrained eye, and in this case, you see what technology is able to do for the Vinsmoke. And it just starts to question whether or not devil fruit powers are even involved when it comes to Reiju. You see what the other 3 boys can do, and then you see Reiju. Is it, well, let's say like this, would it be impossible to expect that Reiju had body modifications that let her produce poison. Now the thing with Reiju in particular is that she has an extra element to it, being the wings, or like being the little details that show up on her cape flaps. It looks like butterfly wings, but just seeing what the brothers are able to do already, you know, if Oda was to say that the poison was something that Reiju is doing due to science, I wouldn't bat an eye. I think that'd be reasonable, because like again, like these things look like they could be devil fruit powers if we didn't know the detail that, hey, the Vinsmoke are really good at science. And so another little note that I want to leave on that, and guys, like, let me know your thoughts for that particular point. Do you think Reiju actually has a devil fruit, or do you think it's possible there's body modifications going on here? Going into the little observation, it's funny to think that these people were in the North Blue. You know, I'm thinking back to Luffy and the gang, and it's like, you know, Sanji technically, I think, lost to his family when it came to, you know, pre-time skip. Sanji would not have been able to keep up with these kids at all. These kids are monsters, and with their technology, they're even more monstrous. Like, let's face it, these four by themselves wiped out a good portion of Big Mom's army before they even got here. And you know, given what we've seen from the Big Mom army, given how we've seen like how other characters can handle them, you know, depending on who you are, depending how you argue it, it may not be that impressive, but it still stands. These four are able to do it, right? They're at a certain level. If the Straw Hats ever ran into them pre-time skip, holy man, that would not have been good. Just given like this power, like, because face it, over 2 years, probably these guys did not get that much stronger. Like, technology gets better with every year or every year, but this level of power is already pretty impressive. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened to the Straw Hats had they been, or had they started in the North Blue or wherever the Dormer were active. So, you know, it's one of those times where I'm grateful we started in the East Blue. It gave the Straw Hats a good training time. Anyway, you know, it's funny. It's funny. Like, these guys are able to do incredible things. And then on Sanji's part, you know, Sanji's being slowed down. I think Sanji can go fast. I think Sanji can go as fast as Niji in this one. But I think he's being slowed down because I know he's damaged and he's carrying Luffy. But it was funny to see Niji like outspeed everyone to get Sanji out of there. Anyway, good stuff overall. It's cool to see, you know, like the Vinsmoke coming in and helping out their brother, and Reiju of course has her little moment where she's like totally against anyone trying to attack Sanji. So all good stuff. Anyway, that was the majority of the chapter. It's just the Vinsmoke get revenge. That was the name of the game. The thing that's going on with the fan reaction is people are wondering, or they're saying that, you know, the last time things went this well, Ace died. So they're kind of like thinking like something bad's gonna happen. And you know, that's a pretty funny perspective to have, I think. But when I think about it, it's just, we've already had a lot of casualties here. Like, things have not been like, when things weren't going well for us, we were having casualties. Like, we had the Pedro casualty and we had Pound. Mind you, people didn't really talk too much about the Pound thing, but that was still a pretty brutal death, if it was a death, and we should assume it is. So I think it's fair to expect the Straw Hats to be getting away from this. If there is going to be a casualty, most, you know, Capone and his people are still on the chopping block. But I'm hoping for good things. Like, what's going to happen? Someone's going to shoot Sanji out of the air? Or Smoothie's all of a sudden going to become giant and swat Sanji out of the air like Hero Academia style? I don't know. Maybe that could happen. But, you know, I think we can look forward to Sanji recouping with the Straw Hats. There is another factor that is Pudding, and I'm really concerned for Pudding. I hope she survives. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts for the chapter. Guys, let me know what you thought down below, and let's end it there. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.